So, you want to be a barber. Hi, I'm John Roseman with Tonsorial Virtuoso. Thanks for joining us here today in Tonsorial Virtuoso Studios. Today we want to talk about becoming a barber. Apparently there's a lot of interest on the internet about hair cutting in general. Not so certain as to how many people are just looking to cut their own hair, few friends, save some money, or how much of that interest is actually people wanting to become a barber. But so this video is for those who actually are interested in becoming a barber. You can find more about my personal story as a barber, which I am, a licensed barber, and have been cutting hair for about 25 years or so. I haven't been licensed as a barber for 25 years, but have been cutting hair since I was basically a kid. But more about my story can be found at my website. I'll have the producers put in a tag for the web address, so you can take a look at that whenever you like. But on to your decision to become a barber, or your speculation as to becoming a barber. I'd like to help you out with that. So here are some things that may have helped me out to make a better or more informed decision had I known these things earlier. But these are things that you probably want to consider. And this will be a first installment of this, and we'll kind of just see how it goes and perhaps add more videos afterwards, depending on the interest, of course. And please, if you have any questions or like to see any particular ideas and topics covered, just drop us a line, leave us a comment, and we'll continue the discussion there. So one of the things I thought to start the discussion with is something that may not be apparent to all who think they may like to cut hair for a living as a barber. And there is a difference between cutting hair for a living as a barber and cutting hair as a cosmetologist. Your options are slightly different with the cosmetology license in most states. Here in Michigan, we do have both designations, cosmetology and barbering. Some states, or for that matter, actually, I wouldn't say some states, but there are some counties in America still that don't require a license for either. So depending on where you live, what country you live in, it varies. But here in the States, your options and your opportunities being a barber are slightly different from those being a cosmetologist or having that particular license. So right now we want to focus on the barber industry, and particularly having a barber license. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the distinction and how opportunities vary for cosmetologists at another time. So with that said, we're going to start with this particular idea here. Barbering is known as more or less a cash-based business, particularly if you're going about it as an independent contractor, or even if you're renting a booth from a barber shop, which is very often how barbers will pursue their career. There aren't a lot of opportunities, so far as I know, and I'm pretty confident about this, for barbers as W-2 employees. In other words, working for perhaps one of the chains, Fantastic Sam's, Bo Ricks, Supercuts, the Regis Corporation, which is the largest in the States. They typically hire cosmetologists, and barbers usually make their way in traditional barber shops, either by paying booth rent or perhaps by commission or independent contractor status. So this is, again, we're building from the premise of a legitimate barber. Granted, there are people who will never get a license, and in fact, if you look up my story, you'll find out that I operated in that manner for years myself, starting off in my parents' basement as a teenager, and even before then, before teens, probably about 11, 12 years old, cutting hair at home. Really didn't start making money until I was in my teens, but I didn't have a license, and that is that dynamic of the business exists. But if you're going to go legitimate, get yourself a license, and try and make a career of it, these are some things you want to think about. Obviously, as a kid, when I was doing it out of my parents' basement, $250 out of the basement versus going to get a job at McDonald's or wherever else, that was pretty good. But making a career of it is a little bit of a different discussion. So that's where we'll start this discussion today. One of the things I want you to think about is the difference between, let's say, $50,000. Try and make a good K there. 50K W-2 versus $50K, we'll say cash, which is typically how or we'll use a more appropriate accounting term, gross receipts. Sure, you guys can't see that, but yeah, gross receipts, $50,000 in gross receipts versus $50,000 in W-2. Well, when you contemplating a career in barbering, it's often attractive because of the cash-based business. Nothing feels better than walking out of a barber shop, whether you're doing it by commission or at the end of the week, with a pocket full of cabbage. Your money come to you unfiltered most of the time by taxes, by insurances, and what have you, and that's attractive. But so we want to talk a little bit about those differences. If you were to make $50,000 a year cash in the barbering business, how different is that from say, for instance, if you have a legitimate opportunity to otherwise be employed by a corporation, a small business, with a wage of $50,000? How do you manage that decision? Do I continue if I'm already a barber or have an opportunity to be a barber? Do I want to be a barber and I feel like I can make $50,000, perhaps even $70,000 a year cash, versus working a job making roughly $50,000 a year in W-2 salary? Well, some might throw in ideas like independence, self-reliance, ideas like that might make one choice or one option look better than the other. So, but here are some things I want to get you thinking about if you're seriously considering barbering as a career. Well, number one, $50,000 in W-2, things are changing dramatically now, but traditionally, $50,000 in W-2 income has often meant paid vacations, sick days, workers' comp, liability insurance if you are exposed to certain factors like that. Otherwise, benefits, large-scale collaborations of other employees. Your wages is less reliant upon just you making the money. For instance, if you miss a day and you work at a manufacturing interest or production work, you got a job making $50,000, $60,000 a year, you miss a day, the business don't stop because you don't show up. clients are not, otherwise clients are served, customers are served whether you show up or not. If you have to take a week off for family medical leave, business still goes on uninterrupted. Usually they can easily fill in your space, or others will make up the difference. So you have collaboration of large corporations and employees and other staff that support the income that you're getting. On the other hand, when you are a barber, everything you get in terms of gross receipts is generally a product of your own effort. And it's typically not supported or girded up by other staff or other employees. They're typically taking care of their clientele and managing their business. So $50,000 in gross receipts have these things, have these dynamics. Number one, you're managing that income, that clientele. You are responsible for it being sustained, expanded if necessary. Also, there are no leave of absence rights that you can exercise as an independent operator or a booth renter. For instance, if something comes up in your family and you need to take a medical leave, you're going to have to fund those type of incidents from your savings, or just suffer the loss of income. So also, when you work for a corporation or when you're working with a company, let's talk a little bit about benefits. One of the things I've done for nearly 20 years as well has been an insurance agent, and this is where a lot of my references come from in terms of benefits, which I will allude to in this session. So when it comes to benefits, it's simply as simple as life insurance. If you work for a corporation, typically, even if you have pre-existing medical conditions or things that would otherwise make you uninsurable if you were trying to get the same coverage independently outside of a company, you can still get these coverages if you work for a corporation. Often it's just given to you when you sign an employee agreement. So whether it may not be a huge policy in terms of life insurance, maybe $50,000 is what they have on all their employees, but you're able to get that coverage, and it's purchased by the corporation at a significantly lower rate than what you would otherwise have to pay being an independent barber. If you're able to get the coverage considering your health and other risk factors. So you're kind of all in it by yourself as a barber. And knowing and understanding that for in terms of making a career choice, something long term. Now I was talking about the guy that was, as I was, in the basement, happy to make gym shoe money and something to go out on the weekend with, but someone who's seriously contemplating becoming a barber for a career. So yeah, you're responsible for other things as well, like bookkeeping, retirement. Granted, things are changing now, and a lot of people in corporate America and in small businesses are becoming more accountable in terms of having to save for their retirements. But there are still W-2 jobs that offer pensions and some type of retirement income. So when you're a barber, all of these concerns are yours. So now that, getting back to that $50,000, well, a significant portion of the $50,000 that comes in gross receipts, well, obviously, if you've paid your booth rent and this is your take home after your booth rent or commission, obviously the cash is in your hand, and there is a benefit to being first on the scene or having first being the first decision making on your money. But with that said, beyond that, you still have to do some, the word that's being thrown around in business today is financial engineering. Yeah, we hear that word bandy about in business today, but basically what that term suggests is that in order to get a positive result in business, which in the case of the barber, you are becoming a business person, you're becoming a businessman. And in order to get a positive result in the end game, is you're going to have to manage all your resources, time, capital, health, all these assets to a positive end. And it's going to take some sophistication about everything that you're dealing with, including money. So that $50,000 that comes to you in cash, while you may spend it as you will, practically and pragmatically thinking, that $50,000 is not going to be the same as $50,000 coming to a W-2 employee. Now, whether you allocate expenditures or funds to things like benefits, obviously you're going to want to pay some taxes, but benefits, taxes, life insurance, health insurance, liability insurance, should you injure someone, all these things insulate you and support the idea of it actually being a career for you. So getting you to see barbering in the context of a long-term career and making it sustainable, you have to begin to look at whatever you're bringing in a more complicated and complex way than the W-2 wage earner. Now, again, there are obviously benefits to being your own person. A lot of people look at barbering as a gateway occupation to entrepreneurship, to doing other things business-wise, being their own person. And obviously those are things that Americans value highly, to be your own boss. But I think it's worth considering, depending on your options, depending on what's available to you, depending on what's reasonably can be accomplished by you in terms of work. I think you need to basically consider all your options before you conclude that this is the right thing for you. Do you have a reasonable and a acceptable to you option to make similar money in a W-2 situation with a lot less of the complexities of managing your own life for the long haul? So before you invest all your time and energy into a career in haircutting or becoming a barber, this is something I think you should think about very carefully. Weigh all of your options, reasonable options. Sometimes for some of us, barbering is the most reasonable and accessible career choice for us at this moment, at the particular moment. And obviously you make that decision based upon reasonable alternatives for yourself. But bear in mind, in terms of a career, long term, it can be a little bit more complex than it initially appears, and the income is not, or the money that you get, your gross receipts, it comes with a lot of accountability and responsibility, and areas where you're going to have to take personal initiatives and use extreme discipline to get a good result. So and barbering income can be far more significant, obviously, than $50,000. You might make $90,000. I've known barbers to make nearly $100,000 in gross receipts after commissions or booth rents a year, and obviously that's significant income. But with that said, even at those dollar amounts, it warrants, and I advise you to still bear in mind the complexity of that number in terms of what has to be done to it, what type of sophistication has to go behind it to, in the end game, in the end result, have a positive result, have a positive and a desirable effect. So obviously some of the benefits to the W-2 status are clear and apparent, because that's very common. But what's not as common is some of the dynamics of actually being an independent and being on your own. So that's why I decided to start this series, and you kind of tell me how this first installation went for you. Hopefully we gave you some things to think about, and please, leave some comments, give us some other ideas that you might want covered. We go into maybe next time marketing, location. So all these different factors play into whether this is a reasonable career option for you as well, depending on where you live, depending on what markets you have access to, depending on what type of clientele you intend to service, what price points you plan to go after. So these are all factors in terms of helping you decide exactly whether barbering is for you or not. Thanks for joining me. I'm John Roseman. I hope this was helpful for you. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Bye now.